Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cyber Week. With the Cyber Week is a podcast which talks about cybersecurity. With me, Deogratius, your Okello, your host, and Josephine, Olok, my co-host. Um, this week, we reviewed the book. I think this book is really changing, life-changing. It's called The Worlds I See by Dr. Lee Fei Fei-Fei Lee. People just bombard me. Why did you? It's the first job, even I'm failing to even finish it very well, just pronouncing the name. So yeah, it's Dr. Fei-Fei Lee. Um, she she's a computer science major. She she studied computer science, then she branched into AI, which she did her doctorate on. And yeah, we'll get to know her through this review of the book. So the first question, which is, who is Dr. Fei-Fei Lee? Josephine, should I answer this
Yeah,
one?
so I can answer this one.
Yeah.
So Dr. Fei-Fei Li, she's a renowned computer scientist, and she's a leading figure in the field of artificial intelligence. She has, with reference to her book, she's described her childhood and early teenage years in China as having been in China. She was born in 76, and that's where she discovered her love for physics. At the age of 15, Fei-Fei and her mother moved to the US to join her father, who had been there 3 years earlier, and she settled in New Jersey. But the family had faced a lot of hardships as immigrants. They couldn't speak English, and her mother had a really bad heart condition. So she's after she was able to, go through all the hardships and managed to get accepted into Princeton University to study physics. So after she earned her physics degree from Princeton, she moved to California, where she completed her master's and PhDs at California Institute of Technology. And she was her research was a mixture of neuroscience and computer vision, which obviously have now kind of become called AI. I mean, she's considered one of the leading figures in computer vision and how it connects to AI. She has a lot of achievements. I read somewhere where she's referred to as a godmother of AI. But she's also known for creating one of the largest databases at the time of images called ImageNet, which helped to advance the issue of computer vision. Um, she was a Sequoia Capital Professor of Computer Science at Stanford University. She was some of these facts I didn't get from the book. I also got on Google. She was also a board member of Twitter. And she also did a sabbatical. During her sabbatical, she was a chief scientist of AI at Google Cloud. I think she's essentially a pioneer in computer vision and AI. Her research has really significantly contributed to the development of AI systems capable of recognizing and understanding the visual world. She's also a co-director of the Stanford Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence. She's a co-director at the Stanford Vision and Learning Lab. She was also a co-director at the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab. She's a diversity advocate. She's co-founded AI for All. It's a non-profit organization which promotes diversity and inclusion in AI, and it promotes the representation of underrepresented groups. And she's a champion for AI development. She has many awards. She's basically recognized worldwide for her leadership in and research in shaping AI. Yeah, especially AI that serves humanity for the better. Yeah. So yeah, so that's Dr. Fei-Fei Li. Can you tell us about AI according to your perspective? What do you think see AI as being?
Well, I think most people got to know about it when uh, OpenAI used ChatGPT,
Yeah,
which could, you know, uh, write text and answer questions. So that's when people got to know it, but it has been there for quite some time. You find that companies like Uber were working on self-driving cars. You find companies like Google are working on image identification, which is not far from what Dr. Fei-Fei worked on, which is ImageNet, where it could identify people's images and or identify a particular structure. And yeah, there are different aspects of it, from it beating a chess grandmaster. So like it has been there for quite some time, and yes, and it's revolutionary and also scary for some people, depending on whether you're an optimist or not. Um, yeah, but yeah, that's AI in a nutshell. It helps improve um, society and solve problems that we personally couldn't. So that's the power of AI.
yeah,
Though it's the fact that it is still in its kind of, could we say, infant stages, that we're still figuring out exactly how to use it properly and where we push it, which side will it tilt towards.
yeah,
But overall, it's really a good thing.
yeah.
So forgot I'm the one to ask the next question. I was just waiting for you to start speaking,
Do you want me to talk about more about
but
AI, or
okay.
you're going to
So
ask?
how does yes, so how does the book tie into AI and Dr. Fei-Fei's life story?
Okay, that's a very big question, to be honest, and I wasn't sure how to answer it. I'm not sure how I would answer it, but what I'll say is that the good thing with what she does in the book is that she
Okay,
really
let me help simplify
looks
for you.
at, go on.
So
When
I
you
was
said you're
saying
going to
that,
simplify, yeah.
yeah, so there are two aspects to it. One is Dr. Fei-Fei is from a diverse background of immigrants. The fact
Hmm.
that you're an immigrant in a different country, there are also some things she talked about in the book concerning that. Then the second aspect of her, which is the professional life of AI, and how she was able to achieve her goal of the different projects she worked on. So I would want you to outline how those two were playing a part in her life and what you picked out of that.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to answer the how it ties into AI by saying that in the book she gives a very good history of how sort of the history of AI led to where she was, and then I'll also talk about her life story, and how she navigated the different journeys. So the first one is how she got involved in science. I think what she says in the book is that she was her father was she called excuse me, when she described her father as somebody uh, who was naturally very curious, but also she said that he was he was not a grown up. I'm just looking for the term that she used, where she said he was where she
An old man. child's man body.
Yeah, is it? I'm just trying to look for the for the um for
The
the
exact
yeah
word to
the
use.
exact words. Yeah. So first of all, she said that he was one of those so curious that he would just get absorbed in observing nature. She even missed her birth because he was caught up watching some birds. So he lost track of time. So when he gets to the hospital, she'd already been born, and then but he liked to play around with words, and then he named her Fei-Fei. Fei means to fly, so he just said Fei-Fei, to fly. But even though he was very curious, it was her mother who gave her direction, and she also describes the that her mother was one of those who was an intellectual who was trapped in a life of imposed mediocrity. So she would have wanted to do much more with her life, but she always had a great desire to escape her circumstances, and in doing that, she read a lot of books, and she was always referring books to Fei-Fei. So that made that really directed her curiosity. It gave her a sense of um, of being curious beyond any restrictions. And the same with her grandparents on her maternal side. They also allowed her to be curious, to read. So she was always she was she was not allowed to 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 excel. She was allowed to be whatever she wanted to be. She said that her mother expected her to work hard, reach her full potential, and they taught her, and her parents taught her that that her efforts were not in service of her teachers or of ideology, but for herself. So she always had that inborn curiosity. So I think that that's something that carried her through the difficult times that she faced. What she said really helped her was when they moved to the U.S. She was really struggling with studies and all that. But what really helped her was her maths teacher called Mr. Sabella. Um, I think he really was like a mentor to her father figure, and he encouraged her to to excel where she would have not otherwise. Gave her that confidence of, of because even though he wasn't an immigrant himself, but she felt that he gave her the confidence to he recognized saw her and gave her the confidence to to learn her English better, to improve, push her beyond what she would have otherwise done. So she's those are her people who really helped her. I think he also helped her introduce her to life in America as outside of being an immigrant, because they were living in a very difficult circumstances. I think a very small place, sharing like close quarters with her parents. But he introduced her to what American life is like, by having going over to his place for dinner and all that. So that I think helped her, and I think having that confidence and being pushed by her mother, her parents, and having a natural curiosity really pushed her to excel. And I think once she started excelling, she met mentors who didn't see her for the fact that she was an immigrant, but for the fact that she was curious. They had this shared curiosity in physics, and what have you. So that really helped her. Um, in in terms of how she got into AI, I think having she talks a lot about the history of AI and how it was first discovered. In her journey to working towards computer vision, she talks about the history of AI, and how it started as um, I think it was a very small research paper that started looking at how um, you could, I think it was the fascination with the human brain. Is it possible to replicate what the human brain does in a in a computational way? I think that's what it started as. And the AI started with what you term expert systems, where you had the systems which had access to a lot of data, but specialized data, and they were able to access that data, but based on a specializing of domain. But these systems are very much rule-based systems because they were very fixed and machine-like. So they lacked the concept of a human intelligence because they were just like machines. And I think they also lacked access to data. So from then on came the concept of neural networks, and neural networks was first applied to human writing. So with that, it was training the networks to look by looking at a lot of data of human writing and then inferring patterns from that, so that when exposed to new instances of human writing, they were able to use the knowledge gained from the previous from the data sets they were exposed to, um, and that became known as machine learning. I think all that evolved, but what happened? What at that stage the the uh, the limitations were based still a little bit of machine learning, but the limitations were mainly data. So as she does all these studies and she talks about this, she realized that that a lot of these systems were looking at decision making, pattern recognition, language processing, but the vision part was missing. Um, she did a project at UC Berkeley during the summer while she was still at Princeton, where they tried to study how the brain and how vision and the brain works by looking at how a cat by trying to recreate the brain activities of a cat using noise. So you'd a cat would be exposed to images. They had machines and electrodes which would pick up the activity in the brain. So from that activity, they then tried to recreate the visual image that the cat was seeing. And she realized that what she really wanted to do was to see how can we make make computer vision central to intelligence, because what she realized was that vision really is a brain's ability is a knowledge for the brain. Because when you look at something, you're getting knowledge by just looking at it. The brain is doing a lot, but it's ultimately the knowledge base of the brain. And that is when she discovered that she wanted to work in computer vision. So that's the background of how the history, her early life and her mentors and all that led her to where she was. So I hope that answers the question. So now I'm asking you. So I gave you a hint
I was enjoying you talking. I even didn't think I would coming up.
No, that one can't happen. You're not getting away with it. Okay, so all right, so what's ImageNet?
So, ImageNet is a child of, should I call it a child of Dr. Fei-Fei. It's a project which they worked on, which required a huge data set, which was basically to ensure that computers could start to work the way human beings work, to be able to picture. If you give it a particular picture, it will be able to know that this is a person. It will be knowing that what is in the background, it will be able to pick it up. So that is basically what ImageNet was supposed to do, and that's what it was able to achieve. Obviously, with a lot of pitfalls, especially when it came to using human beings to curate the information for the data to be used. So meaning that the initial thing was actually 19 years to actually curate the information, but yeah, they were able to turn it into a few months or a year or two. Is it? Yes. Yeah. So there you go. That is it. The way my answers are short and precise makes me feel like
Makes you feel like?
Like I read half the book.
But you read it, so
So,
yeah.
so yeah, that is even it.
Okay.
So I was even waiting for you again to ask.
You need to get into this rhythm. It's answer then
Yeah,
ask.
yeah,
Answer ask
yes,
like that. Yeah.
yes.
Mm.
So, how did crowdsourcing benefit this project? Uh,
Okay. Yeah. So when they initially built ImageNet, I think it had 101 categories of data, of images, should we say, and I think they had like 9,000 or something labeled images. Um, After a while, though, the performance of the algorithms were not getting any better, and Dr. Lee realized that the algorithms were overfitting with what was there, no matter how cleverly designed they were. So even if you trained the algorithms on ImageNet, if you exposed the algorithms to new images, they were not doing very well, and they were not able to generalize sufficiently well. So they felt that if the data set grew bigger, then the capabilities of the algorithms would also grow bigger, and that 101 categories were definitely not enough. She read a paper by Biederman, which was published in 1983, which attempted to ask the question, how many unique categories of things exist in the world? When she did her computation, she realized that category was around 30,000. So, and then she became obsessed with that number. So she then came across WordNet. It was a database of 140,000 words, which were organized in relation to each other. So words like things were grouped together, not it wasn't based on alphabet, but grouped together. So types of dogs would be grouped together, things like that. And then she also came across a project called ImageNet, um, which had attempted to illustrate every concept in WordNet with a simple a simple visual example, so like a photo diagram. So she borrowed that name ImageNet, and then when when they then started looking at WordNet and the 140,000, they realized 140,000 was just too big a number. So after trimming down non-essentials, they ended up with 22,000 subnets for ImageNet. Of course, that was at the time that was a big number. And then remember the year was 2007, so they hired students to download and label the images. But when at the speed they were going, they realized it would take around 19 years to complete. They didn't have that time and they didn't have that money. So they kind of tried to re-engineer the process, improve the downloads, the labeling, but even that would just cut the time down to 18 years. Too slow, and it had too many skeptics. So they kind of got the solution a little bit with ImageNet. Now, when one of her students told her about Amazon, Amazon had a crowdsourcing platform called Mechanical Turk, or AMT, which had teams of remote ad hoc workforces that could range from a few contributors to millions of teams, automating any process across the world. She realized that there was an opportunity there. So and it was built. The concept was built around allowing people to advertise for human intelligence tasks. So that was essentially crowd how her journey to crowdsourcing began. So they started with an international team of thousands, and they were able to compute. They were able to complete the labeling and download of images to 1 year. So project that started in 2007 was completed in 2009. Yeah, so that is how the the crowdsourcing concepts came to her, and the image databases enabled a lot of deep learning to happen from a competition that she was held I think she started a yearly competition for people to mine, to use the ImageNet to develop their networks and what and AI intelligence. Yeah. So so what do we then pick from human learning that enables the building of AI? What can we pick from that?
So now for this, the book helped with coming up with that idea of answering this question. But I also watched a TED talk which she further explained this. She gave an example of an illustration of a cat which is, standing. I think I'll share that image. So now this cat, if we share a cat like when it is standing, it's not the same as when it is lying down. It's not the same as when it is folded. Cats are always with different, angles. I don't know how gymnastic they are, but literally they're in every angle. So
Yeah.
now, if you use the old methodology of gathering information about it, it will always think that it's on a standing cat, which is a cat, and which is not the case. So when they were crowdsourcing and all that, they had to come up with a new form of, using neuroscience to be able to now, start aggregating information. So that's now able to pick up the information from those different pictures to start to learn that this is actually a cat, not something else. And if it wasn't sure of it, it would just categorize it as an animal. So yeah, that whole aspect of it is what they picked out of human beings, because they noticed when it comes to even picking up things, it's the same idea. When they're not sure of something, they'll give an approximate of it. And when kids are growing up, they see multiple, versions of the same thing, and they're able to now start attributing that to that particular animal. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to you wanted to add something to that?
No, I was just agreeing that, yeah, I think a lot of learning is about how humans learn, how babies learn, that they learn by observing and by interacting and all that, but they have a base, like a foundation of learning, which they build on top. So yeah, and from there they can, learn from patterns and all that. Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree.
So now, when it comes to AI biases, so tell us a bit more about it and how Dr. Fei-Fei talks about it in her book.
Okay, so I think AI bias is based on because there's two aspects of bias. There is bias on of the algorithms and bias of the data. So the data that is collected is what the machine learns on. So if your data is skewed towards white males, especially, for instance, if the concept of an engineer or a learned person is always a white male, that is what the algorithm is going to learn. And if the person writing the algorithm only sees the perspective of their only sees their perspective, then it's going to learn based on the person who's written the algorithm. So there's those two aspects. She also realized that there was the example of I can't remember which algorithm it was, which looked at a black woman, and categorized her as a gorilla.
That was
Because
the Google one at the
Google one,
beginning.
yes, Google at the very beginning. And then there've been biases are also with other thing is where because of the data sets and because of the people who have written them, the bias will then discriminate people who are different from the data and from the people who are writing the algorithms. So yeah, so it's the training data is biased. So I think what she realized as well that was that even in her in image that there was a lot of biases. So they started looking and saying, okay, where is our bias, and replacing images which were much more representative of the world around us. Yeah, of course, apart from the data being biased or the algorithms being biased, um, there's also the concept of human bias, because it's a process through it's the humans who are doing everything else, from the data collection to the model. So unintentionally, they will do things which, even though they're not conscious of it, they will do things which they prefer to do. So that is how it incorporates into the bias. Of course, it then touches on the ethics or ethics of these systems, because if you have algorithms which discriminate based on how you look, and if you have algorithms, like facial recognition algorithms, that is not good for those communities and individuals who are biased against, and it continues to exacerbate the existing inequalities that are there, and that means that those algorithms are not going to have are not going to be trusted. Now, the biggest concern with these things is that a lot of companies are using algorithms, especially for things like recruitment. Now, if you imagine an algorithm that is biased based on how your name looks, if it's biasing based on only a limited set of qualifications or a limited data set of universities, so that if you present your CV and you're from Makerere, for instance, it doesn't know Makerere exists. It's like, this one is not a valid in terms of a degree. Or if it sees your name Okello, it's like, what is this, a real name? It doesn't look like a name that I've seen before. So I think those are the concerns, that there's so much that the AI has become a tool to be used a lot in industries and organizations. So there are a lot more implicit biases that perhaps are not that continue to create, to continue with the discrimination. And we should be in a stage in the world where there's less discrimination, but because now we're using tools which are biased, then those the biases become much more implicit. I think it's important that there are regulations around it, that the data sets become much more diverse, much more representative. Uh, Algorithms scrutinized for fairness, and there's enough human oversight to explain, to ensure that the biases are not there, at least are reduced to a certain extent. But it's something that has to be governed better. Okay, so on to the next question then. Do you see the world of AI self-driving cars changing?
Yes, that's a good question. I will use the same things Dr. Fei-Fei said during her book, the auditive party, when she was introducing her book at Stanford. She talked about that exact thing. Well, yes, in terms of cars, there's this aspect of ensuring that the algorithm and the data sets are enough to be able to, when a toddler is actually on the road, it's able to pick it up. If there's a person, there's a stone, it's able to pick it up and know that it's actually a stone, not a scrambled paper. So there are those aspects which needs to be sorted out But in terms of it again, find that when you trust AI to to, to drive, it will do a better job in terms of reducing the amount of accidents. Because trust me, some people will start taking alcohol, then they will start driving, and in terms of safety, that wouldn't be a very effective method. Or some people who are elderly, you find that they would still want to drive, but at the same time, the fact that they can't drive well at night, that will also be challenging. So AI will be able to bridge that gap. But there's also this aspect of the pessimist. Let me talk about them also. So there is that aspect of the fear that such things will happen, where someone will be knocked because of such incidents. It's like the Uber incident. Uh, but yeah, there's definitely, you know, uh, they give the aspect of when it comes to technology, there is the good and the bad, and it keeps on evolving, but it still ends up being good. An example of it would be the aspect of she gave an example of technology is usually a lot for people, but the aspect of it is she gave was the way the atomic bomb happened, then nuclear power came about. And yes, there's that aspect of there's the good, the bad aspect of it, but the good always comes out. So you need to trust in the human general good in order for us to push through and be able to actually see this happen in the future. So yes, that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's difficult to hold back an advance in technology advances, even if you wanted to. It's going to happen. I think what's important is how it happens, and having a balance between the human and the machine. I think self-drive cars, yes, you're right, will probably reduce accidents, but they don't have the intelligence always to react to something that is unexpected. So, something suddenly happens and not read, what will they do? I think having the human element is like having your being a co-driver with your self-drive car would probably be something. And I think being able to make ethical decisions is something that would be a difficult one for them. So, for instance, if they have a choice between hitting someone or swerving into an oncoming traffic, what kind of decision would they make? So I think it is how you manage it. I think is important, and I do think the lessons we have to learn from the mistakes, like the Uber mistakes, where a lady was tragically killed. But yeah, it's going to be difficult to hold it back. But making sure the ethical concerns are addressed, as well as making sure that the regulations are addressed, will definitely help. Yeah.
Seems you already changed to the next question. Just finish it.
What was the next question?
It was about regulators.
Oh yeah,
How
regulation. Yes. Yeah, of course it's important to regulate. I was trying to look at this and see what regulations are available, because I have come across regulations, like within the UK, they've got a framework for AI regulation, where they've basically looked at some kind of framework which cuts across sectors, but also it's outcome based. So it includes principles of safety, security, transparency, fairness, accountability, and governance. I think most of the frameworks are still very much works in progress and responding to what happens in AI. I think it's trying to catch up essentially to regulation. Um, I think there's also EU. The EU also has an AI Act. I think it's trying to make sure that AI is inclusive. I think one of the examples that what Dr. Lee is really looking at is essentially saying what she's realized with the AI and the development of AI is that it's becoming a little bit of even though it started in academia, it's been taken up by technology giants and it's becoming um, not entitlement, privilege, like a privilege to a few. And I think the few privilege will develop solutions which are supposed to be used by everybody. But if they don't address the inherent biases that are there from the solutions that they few who have developed, then it's going to be a really bad for society. So that's what that had been her concern. And I think regulation is going to definitely help the world as we make sure that it's much more fairer, much more transparent, and less, and the ethical concerns are addressed. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unfold when it comes to this topic.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway for me from this book is technology is part of life, and we need to evolve and improve it and work together to work on how to regulate it. And these improvements will help us if we use it well, because technology, remember, is a tool, so you have to ensure that you use it well to your benefit. And there are many ways of using this technology to your benefit. So let's use ChatGPT to our benefit by asking it how do we use it how do we use it effectively. So yeah, I think those would be my contribution.
Yeah. I think as the people who are rolling out this technology need to do is make sure that it is helping humans and not disadvantaging them. Um, we know the implications of AI. If you start having self-drive cars, what will be the impact on taxi drivers and people who have cars? So all the impacts need to be managed better, and all these companies that are adopting it need to be sensitive to that. And I want to read her quote, which she's that I want to end on. She said that she's convinced that the true impact of AI on the world would be largely determined by the motivation that guided the development of the technology, and that the vision for AI should explicitly include a positive impact on humans and communities, and that the AI could change the world for the better. And I think that ultimately is what should happen. So yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, with that, I'll end the podcast there.